Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode where we sat down and we did a live mastermind on creating your own system of success. Today, for episode number 373, we are going to do a 360-degree look on perspective.
And empathy.
So
the reason we're doing this episode is a lot of things are going on in the world, and Kevin and I are always asking ourselves, like, what can we do to help spread positivity? You know, I've said this many times, not only during COVID, but also during what's going on in the world right now with the Black Lives Matter movement and racism and some of those things emerging, is happy, healthy, productive, fulfilled people don't want to hurt others. Right. And we're on that mission really to help people learn how to become happy, healthy, productive, and fulfilled. And so Kevin and I wanted to do an episode talking about empathy, and there's a couple facets here. The first thing I want to mention is that sometimes you have to understand when you don't understand. And for Kevin and myself, we grew up in a suburban town. There wasn't a lot of African Americans in our town, and Kevin and I, are white Caucasian males, and we don't know necessarily what it's like to deal with racism.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first thing we're trying to understand at a deeper level. And I think that's one thing we can all do is have a deeper level of understanding. And I use an example where Emilia and I were heading to the supermarket, and I went to park in the back because that's my habit. I seek solitude. I often park in the back of the gym, away from the other cars because I do motivational videos and stuff, and I don't want to be distracted. But what I didn't realize is that she doesn't like to park in the back parking lot because she likes well-lit areas because she's female, and a lot of females are worried about sexual assault, totally understandably. And what's interesting is in that moment, I realized that I've never once really concerned myself with whether or not I was going to get sexually assaulted, because I parked in the back or whatever. And so again, I don't know what that's like, just like I don't know what this is like, but I do want to understand and support it. Yeah,
that's what, I think when it comes to empathy and having a 360-degree perspective, the first thing you need to do is become more aware. Right? And I've said this many times. Like, I used to work with African-American men. Amazing. They were amazing. Nicest. Like, I had really good friends at work. I never considered the color of their skin. That wasn't a thing.
Right.
But I did see some times where they were treated differently than I was. And that was my first time ever really seeing racism. But it's one of those things where it's like, that could be like day 100 of that. Just because I saw it once didn't mean that was the first time. It definitely wasn't the first time.
Right.
So I think what is happening, and also we wanted to come on here and say, like, I definitely 1,000% support Black Lives Matter. I think there's crazy things going on. There's a lot of police brutality, even right now, against peaceful protests. That's all ridiculous. It's not. Things are change. I think things are going to change because they have to, because of what's going on.
Right.
But, and I told you this, like, I felt guilty. I felt bad because it's like, I didn't know this was happening like it is.
Right.
And I think a lot of things have gone viral lately. Everybody has their phone out, which is honestly what's changing things. But how can you, the goal is always to empathize. How can you empathize if you don't understand first?
Right.
So I was saying in the preamble, Taryn and I watched a movie called Just Mercy. It is the gentleman who was in Creed, Michael B. Johnson, I think his name is.
Right.
Great. He's a great actor. But this was about an African-American man who went to law school, in Harvard. He went to Harvard, became a lawyer, and focused on helping innocent African-American men and women who were on death row get out of jail. And even the racism he faced as the lawyer going into the prison, and it's based on a true story. So, like, the whole court system was against all African-Americans. If you were black, you were guilty. And it's like, you see movies about that, but for some reason it never locked in until seeing what's going on now.
I've told you for many years now at this point that I often look for perspective resets, and I have certain movies that I go to. One of the ones I go to often is Hotel Rwanda. And Hotel Rwanda, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's I believe Don Cheadle, but it's a very, very powerful movie based on a true story of the genocide that happened in Rwanda. And it's a fascinating character study of how bad racism can get, not only between, the white people at Hotel Rwanda and the black people staying there trying to survive, but also in that country, how divided they were. I think it was Tutsis and there was another tribe. But it's just, it really puts in perspective how little suffering I've had, at least in that arena in my life. And it helps me be more grateful for the freedom we have.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like you see it in a movie and then you go back to your normal life and it doesn't, not that it doesn't apply, you just don't see it again.
Right.
Right? Like I'm very rarely in a city environment. So it's not like I see a lot of cops. Like I don't really ever see things happening because I live in an area where it's kind of woodsy. Like there's not much going on.
Right.
So it's like when you go back to your reality might not be that. Right? And my hope is, if you're listening to this, you want to get clear on your morals, your values, and you want to be able to understand people at a deeper level. I think the first step is awareness.
Right.
And a lot of people right now are saying like, well, what can I do to help? I mean, I've taken the surveys online and done I can't remember what they're called. Like the change.org things where you you vote and try to make sure that things get passed. And
I know what you're talking about.
I can't think of what it's called.
I can't think of it either. I know. It's like when everyone signs.
Yeah, it's a petition.
Petition.
Yeah.
Right.
So I hammered some of those.
Right.
And that was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And I think for me, the next step is to get more aware.
Right.
And I hope everybody does. And I said this in the preamble. What's happening right now is you're seeing, if you're racist, it's getting highlighted. Like Jeff Bezos is getting a ton of emails, a ton of hate about the fact that he put Black Lives Matter on the front of Amazon. People literally saying, I will never buy from you again. I can't believe you put that on there. And it's like, I don't know. Maybe I was ignorant to the fact that there's people like that out there.
I remember this was a couple of years ago. I was up in Maine, and I told you this story because I think we talked about it back then. I was up in Maine, and I remember seeing like a lift-kitted truck with like a huge Confederate flag.
Yeah.
And it was like, a very dirty, sort of dingy truck. And I just remember at the time driving up to Maine, and I remember going, oh, yeah, that's right. Like, some people are racist. And it's interesting because that was a mirror for me of, like, I very rarely see active racism in my day-to-day life. Because you and I, again, dude, we're in a little bit of a personal development bubble. Yeah. Not only do we, spend very little time in environments where we might get exposed to that kind of stuff, but, like, I remember I saw a post. It said something very simple but very profound, which was, it must be nice to have only an intellectual understanding of racism, meaning you've never actually experienced it. And I remember that was a mirror for me of like, yeah, I don't. And that's kind of one of the things it's even hard for me to talk about because I do realize that I don't know. And all I can say is that I want to help people be more happy, healthy, productive, and fulfilled because I don't want to hurt anybody. I know you don't want to hurt anybody. Right. All we want to do is support people's ability to choose their own destiny. Yeah. And for anyone out there who is dealing with the inability to choose their own destiny because of suppression, and one of my main mentors is in a minority group, and he talks a lot about like how oppressed he was. One of my other mentors too was German, and after World War II, he came back to America. His parents did rather, and Germans after World War II were very, very suppressed. And it's just crazy, man. It's almost like I just want everyone to have an equal opportunity. Like everyone should get a fair shot at this life. And again, that's just what I stand for. So
yeah, it's sad. And honestly, like there's a lot of really bad things happening, but there's a lot of really good things happening because of it.
Positive change.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive change. It sucks that it had to happen the way it did, and,
right.
and innocent people had to die over it. But and the point of this episode is not to go down that road necessarily, but I think if you're listening to this and you want to be able to find a perspective and help people, whatever that means to you, I think the first thing is finding awareness by studying and by watching these documentaries and, talking about what you believe in. Right? And I think, I used to be the guy who said like all lives matter. I don't understand why it's just the Black Lives Matter. I don't get that.
Right.
Well, because it's not all lives that are
being
under
suppressed.
Exactly. It's not all lives that are under extreme prejudice and like danger. I said this the other day to you. When I'm driving down the street, I'm not worried about getting pulled over other than I don't want to get a ticket.
Right.
And when I lock that in, like how many cops do I see on a daily basis?
Oh yeah, all the time, man.
So imagine what that's like if you've ever had a
I've
negative...
been thinking about that a lot lately.
Yeah.
I saw several.
And that's perspective.
Yeah, it is.
And that's because you're looking for that perspective.
I know,
So
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, the point of this episode is what this is doing is highlighting the fact that I had almost zero perspective of what it's like to be somebody else. Now, that can go anywhere. Right now, it's very applicable. Black Lives Matter. You know, African Americans are prejudiced in this systemic racism. That's terrible. We do not stand for that. But it's like that with a lot of things. Anybody handicapped, you don't know what it's like to be them.
Right.
Right? You don't know what they've been through. You don't know. And that's another thing, like, you know, when you know somebody who has maybe a sibling who's handicapped, you see what they go through. And that gives you a different perspective.
Right.
And you're able to empathize with them. So I think at the end of the day, the goal, my challenge, and I don't want to put it as a challenge, but I'm focused on learning more about suppression of African Americans, about their culture, about what they've been put through over the last however many years, hundreds at this point, right? It's my goal to learn more about that so I can help in whatever that means to me. Maybe for you, talking about it on a podcast isn't your way. Understandable. Right? For us, we have a platform. I want to talk about that and say we support Black Lives Matter. And honestly, I don't know what to say in terms of like, if you're struggling with something, reach out. I'll be there to support you. I don't care what color. That doesn't mean I don't care about any of that. I can't promise I'll know what to say, but I'm trying. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to figure out, you know, what I can do to help as much as I can. But I promise I'll listen. I'll be a shoulder to lean on. I'm here for you.
So I've said this before too. I think the root cause of all human suffering. I said this on the book club this past Saturday. I said, where are we still putting leeches on us to heal our wounds? Like, where are we still saying the earth is flat? Where are we still saying that the earth is the center of the universe when it's clearly the sun? The point is like ignorance and apathy. Either people don't know any better or they don't care enough. And I think that at the end of the day, all suppression of self-expression, all racism, all injustice comes down to either you don't know any better or you don't care enough. And so I think that's where we all start. And for me, that's my goal. Like you said, it's learn and then do what we can. I mean, we just did a mastermind on hyperconscious leadership because if you're not able to be a positive influence in those around you, because here's the thing, man, like I grew up in an environment where I would hear a racist joke and it's like, was I strong enough and have the courage to say, dude, that's not okay? Or did I just fit in?
No, I'm guilty.
And so if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And I think we can all try to be part of the solution now that it's so, you know, in our faces.
And it's
time.
learned.
It's time.
Any form of suppression or racism is learned. I think it can go three ways. You're either taught to be a racist, you're taught not to be a racist, or you don't know.
You're just unaware. Exactly.
And either way, like if you're taught to be a racist, you think you're aware of something. If you're taught not to be a racist, you're aware of something. If you don't know any better, you're just not aware. That's all.
And either way, now you can choose because it's all being highlighted.
Right.
And so now you know, and that's a mirror for all of us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's very interesting times. It's, you know, again, we're in the strangest time maybe ever. I don't know.
Maybe
right?
ever, yeah.
That any of us have lived through.
Right.
And maybe will ever live through. And I just want to make sure that I'm doing my part. I want to make sure that when I have kids and I have a family, I am aware enough to say, like, this is the way it is. This is the way it used to be. This is the way it's trending now. We're going to do our part to make sure that that never happens again.
Right.
But the first step for me is understanding. And I think that's the first step for everybody.
Yeah, makes sense. The first step is awareness. That's what this podcast's about.
Right.
You can't solve something until you're aware of the root cause of it, right?
Yeah.
So.
And part of being hyperconscious is talking about the hard stuff that's going on. And we usually don't talk about current events because most of them, you know, I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to get into any of that.
Right.
But this is equality and human rights, and this is way more important than almost anything going on right now.
Change the way you think, you'll change the way you act. That's what we all want to do. Let's change the way we think about all of this, and let's learn and understand, and then all be more effective in the future. And again, it all comes down to how can we help more people be fulfilled, because the violence and all that, man, not okay.
No.
Like that's not helping anyone.
Right.
You know, and it's just like an overreaction to an overreaction to an overreaction. It's not good. So anyways, yep.
We are here for you. Reach out to us.
Please.
Again, I can't promise I'll know what to say, but I think I'm a pretty good listener, and I'll gladly listen and support in any way I can. Ladies and gentlemen, my challenge to you, become aware. Do some reading, do some watching, try to find perspective because, you know, like Alan said, like I said, when we drive down the street, I'm thinking a little bit differently now, and that's helping me understand what other people are going through. And I'm going to, you know, I am committed to consistently learning and growing and evolving and trying to help wherever I can. We will talk to you on Friday.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.